If you have ever felt most alone in a room full of people, this is not a personality flaw. It is a psychological pattern, a documented, studied, deeply understood pattern that almost nobody is talking about, honestly. Most people assume that loneliness is a sign that something went wrong, that the person sitting alone at the edge of the room missed a social step somewhere, that they are broken in a way other people are not. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man alive. He commanded armies, he ruled millions, he was surrounded by people every single day of his life, and he wrote privately about feeling profoundly, persistently alone. Not because he was damaged, not because he failed at relationships, but because the kind of mind he carried made certain types of connection genuinely difficult to find and almost impossible to sustain with people who were not operating at the same depth. He was not lonely because he was flawed. He was alone because he was specific. There is a difference between those two things that psychology has been trying to explain for decades, and most YouTube channels have never come close to articulating it properly. What you are about to read are 6 psychological reasons why intelligent people often end up alone. Not the surface explanations, not the comfortable ones, the ones that are actually true. Pay close attention, because if this describes you, what comes next is going to change how you see your entire social landscape. The 6 reasons. 1. They process depth that most conversations never reach. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man who speaks only of surface things will always find himself standing in rooms that feel like deserts. You can be surrounded by noise and still be completely alone if none of the noise is reaching the frequency you operate on. Highly intelligent people do not just think differently, they process at a different layer entirely. Where most conversations move horizontally, wider, broader, more people, more topics, the intelligent mind moves vertically, deeper into a single idea, further into the implication beneath the implication. The problem is not that other people are less worthy of connection. The problem is that most social environments are architecturally built for horizontal interaction, small talk, surface agreement, shared distraction, and the mind that naturally wants to go vertical finds horizontal exhausting in a way that is almost physical, not because they are arrogant, because the level of engagement they genuinely need to feel connected is simply not available in most standard social exchanges. So they leave, where they stay and feel invisible. Both feel like loneliness. Stay with this, because reason 3 is going to explain something about intelligent people that sounds counterintuitive, and it is the one most people in this category have never had named for them. 2. Their standards for trust are built on a different architecture. Most people extend social trust in layers that build gradually and generously. They meet someone new and begin with openness, adding caution only when something breaks. Highly intelligent people tend to operate in reverse. They begin with careful observation. They watch how a person behaves when they think they are not being evaluated. They track consistency between what someone says and what someone does. They notice micro-contradictions that most people walk past entirely. This is not cynicism, it is pattern recognition applied to human behavior. Marcus wrote that the fastest way to lose yourself is to attach too quickly to people who have not yet been proven. He spent years watching those around him before extending genuine trust. And in a court full of political maneuvering and performance, that caution was not paranoia, it was survival intelligence. The consequence for intelligent people today is that by the time they feel genuinely safe with another person, most of the people who started the connection have already moved on. The relationship window closes before the trust architecture is complete. They're not cold, they're careful. And careful is a slow currency in a world that moves fast. 3. They are frequently more comfortable with their own mind than with other people. This is the one that sounds like a social failure, but is actually a form of psychological self-sufficiency that most people never develop. The intelligent mind is rarely bored alone. It generates its own material. It finds problems to examine, ideas to test, questions to pursue. It does not need external stimulation to feel alive. The interior world is genuinely interesting. What this creates is a threshold problem. For another person to be more compelling than solitude, they have to clear a bar that solitude already sets remarkably high. The conversation has to be more generative than thinking alone. The relationship has to add something that the interior life cannot provide independently. Most interactions do not clear that bar, not because the people are inadequate, because solitude, for this kind of mind, is genuinely not the problem most people assume it is. Marcus wrote about retreating into himself as a deliberate practice. He called the inner life his private estate, a place no one could enter, damage, or diminish. The ability to live richly in that space is not antisocial. It is one of the rarest forms of psychological freedom available to a human being. Do not skip Reason 5. It contains the psychological explanation for something intelligent people experience in almost every close relationship they try to build, and it is the thing nobody ever puts language around. 4. They carry questions that make other people uncomfortable. Highly intelligent people tend to examine things most people have tacitly agreed not to examine. Social contracts, inherited beliefs, the assumptions underneath the assumptions, the unspoken rules that hold group dynamics together. This is not deliberate provocation. It is how their mind naturally moves. They see the scaffolding behind the wall and cannot stop themselves from asking who built it and whether it is still necessary. The problem is that most social environments depend on those unexamined agreements staying unexamined. The moment someone starts pulling at the scaffolding, it creates discomfort that the group instinctively redirects back at the person doing the pulling. Marcus wrote that the man who asks the questions others avoid will not always be thanked for the clarity he provides. He will often be resented for it, because clarity in an environment built on comfortable illusion is not a gift, it is a disruption. Intelligent people learn this early, usually through social consequence, and many of them respond by going quiet, by editing the questions they ask out loud, by becoming two people, the one the room sees and the one who is actually thinking. That internal split is one of the loneliest experiences a human being can carry.
5. They grieve connections that never fully materialized. This is the psychological reality almost no channel ever addresses. Highly intelligent people do not just miss connections they had and lost. They frequently mourn connections that were almost real, but never fully arrived. Relationships that hovered at the edge of depth and then retreated into the familiar safety of surface. Conversations that came within one honest exchange of becoming something significant and then deflected back into noise. The almost connection is a specific kind of grief. It does not have a name, there is no ritual for it, and because it is invisible, because nothing technically ended, nothing technically broke, it sits unacknowledged inside the person carrying it. Marcus wrote about this without naming it directly. He described the weight of being seen partially, of offering something genuine and watching it be received with something that was not quite capable of holding it. The transaction completed on the outside, but hollow in the way it mattered. Intelligent people accumulate these almost connections across a lifetime, and the cumulative weight of them is indistinguishable from loneliness, even though technically no single relationship failed. 6. They outgrow relationships faster than they can replace them. The intelligent mind does not stay the same version of itself for long. It reads, questions, revises, expands. What it believed last year, it has examined and either reinforced or replaced. The person it was 3 years ago is genuinely different from the person it is now. The problem is that relationships are built between specific versions of two people. And when one person changes faster than the relationship can absorb, the connection begins to carry a gap that neither person can fully name. Marcus wrote that the man who never changes his mind has never truly examined it. He revised his own thinking constantly, documented it privately, and held his beliefs with enough looseness to let better information replace them. The consequence of that kind of growth is that it can be deeply lonely. The people you started with are still exactly where you left them. The connection is still technically intact, but you are standing somewhere new, looking back across a distance that arrived quietly and without announcement. And the hardest part is not the distance itself, it is that you cannot make someone else travel it. They have to want to, and most people, given a choice between the comfort of staying put and the discomfort of growth, stay put. If any of these 6 reasons felt less like a description and more like a mirror, pay close attention to what comes next. Because here is what psychology and Marcus Aurelius agree on completely. The goal is not to fix the aloneness by lowering the standard, not to make yourself easier to be around by becoming less of what you are, not to perform smallness in exchange for a company that was never going to hold you anyway. The goal is to understand precisely what you are looking for, so you stop exhausting yourself searching for it in places it was never going to exist. Marcus Aurelius spent his entire life building 2 things simultaneously: an inner world so rich and self-sufficient that solitude was never a punishment, and a standard for genuine connection so clear that when it arrived, he recognized it immediately without confusing it for its imitations. The next video on the rational soul goes further than this. We are going to break down the specific psychological profile of the kind of connection highly intelligent people actually need, why it is rarer than most people realize, and the exact reason most intelligent people keep finding almost the right person instead of the right person. That video is coming, and it will be the one people share with the specific human being they have been trying to explain themselves to for years. Subscribe to The Rational Soul. Turn on every notification. Do not miss the next one. Most people will spend their entire lives feeling like this without ever understanding why. You just took the first step toward understanding it. Do not miss the next one. More truth like this. Subscribe to The Rational Soul now.